Welcome to our live session with creative designers and artists all over the world. And today our guest is Sarah Schroeder. She is an abstract artist and not only an abstract artist but also a creative coach. So today we will talk about how to let go of perfectionism, actually how to deal with it, because I know that many of you and me also sometimes are a bit more focus about this perfect art, or not only art, actually any things that we do during the day. So we will talk about some tips that can help us with letting go of perfectionism, and also about the power of journaling. It's really very nice practice and tool. And another thing that I would like to discuss with Sarah is what is creativity coach actually, and what do they do, and how it connected to art. So Sarah, if you hear me, please send me the request and I will add you to the live. And also everyone who are listening, you're very welcome to drop any comments, any questions in the comments, and we will be happy to answer them. As well as if you want to get all the highlights and tips from this live, you're welcome to subscribe to the newsletter. Then you will have everything and all the main helpful highlights into your inbox. Yeah. Please let me know if you can hear me. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think I have. Okay.
Okay.
Sometimes it happened with my. It's okay.
Please, I'm very happy that you're here, and thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh, you're in your studio, right?
Yes, I am. Let me see if I can get my face on here a little bit better. There we go.
Oh, I love I saw these abstract artworks that you create in your reels. They're so beautiful and cute. And also today we'll talk about how all this art helps on not only to create and to draw, but also to maybe manage some more deep things. And my first question, actually, just if you can introduce a little bit yourself and share with us your artistic background.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's fine. My name is Sarah Schroeder. I am an abstract artist and I live in Miami, Florida in the US. I am an artist and I'm also a mindful art teacher and a creativity coach. And that has kind of been like a winding path over time, but we'll get to that eventually. My artistic background, I'll try to keep it short, but it's kind of like the typical, as a kid, I loved making art. I was always, making things, and I loved to draw, and it was kind of like my happy place to be, quiet and drawing something. And I took a bunch of art classes in school, and then eventually went to college, and I started out in a major that I just, for whatever reason, my parents never discouraged me from trying to pursue art. I think I just must have had this idea culturally, maybe, that art wasn't like a viable career. So I entered college doing something else and then really didn't like it. And every night I had been coming home and doing artwork in my dorm room. And I was like, well, I guess maybe I should just change to a fine art major. So I did. And so I'm a little bit of a mix between having some formal art education and also being self-taught, because I actually didn't finish my formal art training. I became a mom and decided that I wanted to focus on staying home with him and doing that rather than going to school. So I did that for many years and had 3 more kids, and my art kind of was like very much in the background. I wasn't really doing it at all. I would occasionally break it out to do like make a craft or something, or I would paint a picture for somebody as a gift. A few times I tried to paint something really quick to try to earn some money. It didn't really work. Um, and then finally, when my oldest was graduating high school and my youngest was entering full-time school as a kindergartner, and we had just moved and I had a whole room to myself, that is when I decided to actually pursue art as a career, but with a very loose, a loose uh, parameter, I guess, in that I just decided I'm going to treat it like a part-time job. And while the kids are away at school, that's what I'm going to do. And I'll just see what happens. So that is how I got started. That's the background. I think I switched. I used to do a lot of more realistic artwork. And when I first got back into art again, because I was trying to balance being a mom and all of the things that that entails, I didn't have a lot of time to devote to it. So I did find that abstract artwork was more conducive to my lifestyle, partly because of the materials I was using and because I could do it quickly. Um, and and then over time doing more artwork and discovering, what goes into my artwork and what I love, I am very introspective about my artwork, and there's a lot of mindfulness that goes into it, but I didn't realize that at the time until I was doing some writing about my work. And then I was invited to teach, and so I designed a class based on what I knew about how I was making my artwork. And as I was teaching, I realized I really needed to know how to hold space for people as they entered this space. Of creating artwork that's really mindfulness and emotional based. And that is why I decided to pursue the coaching, so I could facilitate those classes well and hold space for people in that more sensitive area, because I wasn't really prepared for that when I first started teaching. So that's my background.
Thank you so much for sharing it. It's so interesting to know. It's curious that for me, when I was invited to teach, it was a really important moment, because before that I also just draw, and I didn't think much how I draw,
Right.
what I draw. I just
Yeah, I know.
And then at that moment, when you are asked to explain to others, it's very interesting and deep research inside yourself, and also looking around, okay, how everything works, and what are the connections between what I'm doing. And
Right.
it was really very, very important moment for
Yeah.
me, as I understood for you too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's hard to pick it apart. And it took a while to understand, because I didn't know how to walk people through what I was doing. But I'm very glad for the opportunity that presented itself and sort of forced me into finding out what I'm doing.
And moving to creativity coaching, I know for many people it's something that is not so clear, this definition. What does it mean, creativity coach? Yeah. Can you explain it, please?
Yeah. Well, I think that there are a few different kinds. I am trained specifically in the Kaizen Muse method of creativity coaching, and it focuses on using very, very small steps that are really, really forgiving to help move you forward, because a lot of small things eventually get you to the big thing. But a lot of times when we're experiencing kind of being frozen and not being able to move, or we're afraid of failing, or we're suffering from perfectionism or from overwhelm, and breaking these things into really, really small steps helps our human brains not go into that like fight, what is it, fight, flight, or flee. So what really it is I talk to the student or my client, and they tell me what they want to work towards, and then just through a series of questioning and conversation, and really just helping them get to the things that they already know can help them move forward, we just break it down into really small steps and move them towards their goal in a really forgiving and gracious way.
do you work only with creatives, with artists and designers and illustrators, or your methods can be applied to others who are not connected with art?
Yeah, honestly, so I do work mostly with creatives, with artists, people who are wanting to move their art forward in some way or another. But this really does work with almost anything in life. You can break it down so small. It really, I think once you start to use it even for creativity, it sort of the method sort of becomes a part of how you function, and then you do start to apply it in other areas of life.
What main differences do you see between when you work with creatives, with artists and not artists, when you're teaching them your methods?
Well, honestly, I don't work. I mean, it works well with people who are not artists. I work mainly with artists. So I don't have the experience with somebody who's not an artist, but I know for myself in life when I'm trying to move myself forward in something, you can break it down the same way. So for instance, if I'll go with not an art thing. So if you have to clean your closet, you might walk into your closet and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to take me 4 days. I can't even deal with this right now." But if you stand in your closet and you think, "I need to make some kind of progress," you can start to break it down into what has to be done. And you can either break it down by task or you can break it down into a number of minutes. It just becomes, what do you think that you can handle and what sounds fun, interesting, easy to do. So for me, if I'm going to clean my closet, I might decide, well, sometimes I like to multitask. So for me, I might say I have to listen to this class, or I'm trying to get through this book. So I'm going to put the book on my AirPods and I'm going to go in my closet, and for one chapter, I'm going to start tidying. And that's all I'm going to do. And once you start to have success, so I clean for one chapter of the book and I'm done. And that's it. That was all I had to do. And I had success and I'm excited about it. And so then the next time when it comes to clean my closet again, I'm thinking one more chapter, one more little section. That's all I have to do. A lot of times it's the massiveness of the project that can stand in our way. So if we can just break it down into a really enjoyable step, then it helps us move, because either we're moving or we're not. So if we're moving in a tiny step, that's much better than not moving at all.
Yeah, agree. Can you, can you just share with us maybe some easy tips that everyone can try to deal with perfectionism? Something that you can do, but your own, just.
Oh, that's a hard one. Well, I think one, it's a little bit hard sometimes for people to be able to identify that they're stuck in being perfectionist. So first it would be to try to identify that that's what's going on. So if somebody is saying, "I'm not going to do any artwork because I'm afraid it's going to look bad," you can go through a line of questioning like, "Well, what's the worst thing that can happen? If this doesn't look good, what's the worst thing that can happen?" And then if it looks terrible, then what are your options after that? And are any of them so much that you shouldn't try it at least? I don't, because I don't have like a concrete question, it's hard for me to determine what a great thing for perfectionism would be.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
I can give you an example. Sometimes I meet students who can say that, okay, I'm thinking about creating art. I will create it. I will draw, but now it's not the good moment. Now I don't feel inspiration. I don't have time, but I definitely will do it in the future.
yeah.
What do you do with this in this situation?
Well, I think one, there are a couple different things. One, I think if you give yourself a time limit, so if they're saying, "I don't have time," I think it's a really fun exercise to just give yourself little small pieces of paper and time yourself for maybe 2 minutes and work your way through that pile. Say you have 10 pieces of paper, 2 minutes for each card. So you're only spending 20 minutes on the exercise. You know you have to move fast, so you can't be perfect. You just have to do something that you can accomplish in 2 minutes. So do that. And a lot of them you might want to throw away, but there might be one or two that stand out for you. And then the other thing would be to just start intending and knowing that this is going to be bad, but I don't care. I need to do something and be involved in the actual practice of making something. So here's my paper and I'm just going to make something kind of crappy.
Yeah.
And it might turn out and it might be really crappy, but there's nothing lost by being engaged in the act of being creative.
Yeah, I agree. I also love these approaches with my students. I noticed that I have these mini practices for them that it's very simple prompts, but the idea is to do it in 10 minutes or something like that. And from the feedback, with their feedback, I really see that it helps a lot, because when you have this limit of time in your head, you know, okay, it's just impossible to create something like a masterpiece in this time frame. So I will just try to draw something, no matter how beautiful or not it would be.
Yeah. Another thing that is kind of nice when you're trying to just get somebody or help somebody to do something and not be so concerned about the outcome is to use the non-dominant hand. Because you can't be perfect with that hand.
Yeah, I love this. I have this practice also, and it's amazing because we have this perception of how we should draw. And when when I ask or do it myself, take is not dominant hand, their pen or no matter what brush, then we already have this idea. Okay, it's also just impossible to create something gorgeous because I don't know how to use this hand, and there is a relief, kind of, okay, it was fun.
Yeah, and a lot of times the work that comes out is really playful and expressive, and I feel like it's enjoyable to see how what comes out in that regard.
Yeah. Okay. Can you please describe how your sessions look like? Do you work with groups or personally? So if I come to you and say, okay, I'm looking for a creativity coach, how would our work would look like? How this cooperation?
So I don't do groups right now, but that may be something I add in the future, some kind of small group scenario where we have like 5 or 6 people. Right now, I meet with clients for about an hour individually, and we will go through just kind of catching up and understanding what they are working on and maybe what kinds of blocks are coming up for them. Then we usually do some sort of creative exercise within the session, and we will a lot of times use a mindfulness exercise like a guided relaxation or a guided visualization or something like that to help access some wisdom that they already have, but they're not touching on it yet. So we can use the mindfulness and the guided meditations to help them get there. We sometimes do artwork within the session, or we might do some written journaling, but it's really guided by what the client needs and wants when they come to see me, and through our conversation I can kind of then guide our session. So it's really individual, but those are a few things that happen almost every time, and then they will usually leave with the next small step that they can use until we meet again, and then they have access to me via email until we meet again. And I usually do it, I do it online because that's mostly where my clientele is, like all over the US. And I do have a couple people over in Europe, but I would do it in person if somebody wanted to.
Are your clients mostly beginner artists or maybe art is their
Um,
hobby?
I have a range. I would say they are definitely in the hobbyist range, and more often than not wanting to take their art practice to another level, just a little bit more than where they are right now. I do have a couple people that are brand new and don't really, are not familiar with what to do or where to start. And we're just helping them kind of get to know themselves as an artist and figure out what they want next.
I also love this practice, and it mentioned in the comments. Karen writes, I also ask students to wear a bandana over their eyes. This really shows the inner critic, slows the inner critic, and gives the people some mental peace, peace to create freely. Yeah, I also tried that, and it's
Mm.
it's interesting how we do the same things with open eyes, with closed eyes, with right
Yeah.
hand or left hand,
Yeah.
but our perception of the process, sometimes we can feel totally blocked, and having the same colors on the paper but created with closed eyes, for example, give us some release, and it's so interesting how it works, really.
Well, I think it's because when our eyes are open and we're using our dominant hand, we expect a lot of
Yeah,
ourselves. But
yeah,
when we're
this is.
using our non-dominant hand or we can't see, we automatically are like, oh, it doesn't have to be good because I can't. It doesn't, there's no expectation that it has to be good. So then, like you're saying, we're just like released of any kind of expectation.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
everything is in this expectation of how good or good enough it should be.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Okay, moving forward. Maybe you can share with us your own creative process. You have so many beautiful, lovely artworks on the background. Could you please describe your day in the studio? How much time do you draw, or maybe you're more focused now on creating educational projects and working with clients? Just your
Yeah.
life, like your life as an artist.
Yeah. So right now I am really focused on creating more educational materials and things I can, like classes that I can teach. And I have a membership program, so I've been working on that. But I do, what I notice is when I'm in the studio, I am working a lot. I think it's all creative, all these classes that we're dreaming up and the lesson plans that we're doing and the workbooks that we're making, like it's all creative, but it's a different kind. And so I do notice that I miss when I'm actually using paint or a pencil or drawing something. So lately, having devoted so much time to the educational products and the administrative part of things, I find what's really kind of like feeding my creative soul right now is that before I leave the studio every day, I do just a little journaling page in pencil or pen. I just give myself maybe 20 minutes. Sometimes it turns into more than that if I have more time, and I put some music on and I do my pages. And it's just a really, it's like a gift to myself, and it makes me so happy. And it's also, I like it because it just reminds me of something that I can tell my clients and students. Like, it doesn't have to be this really long, drawn out process of, I'm sitting down and I'm painting for 4 hours and it has to be that way or I can't be happy. It's also a viable way to stay creative if you can just give yourself 20 minutes a day to do it. So I know that wasn't a bunch of detail. Generally, what my day looks like is I get up very early when my husband and my daughter leave for school. They leave and I start working on my lesson plans and maybe like editing photos and creating. Right now I'm working on a workbook, and then I usually will go for a walk, get something to eat, and then sometimes I have meetings set up, maybe my coaching clients at that time, more between like my time, like 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., sometimes a little bit later than that. And then I will go pick up my daughter and come back, and then I will take a couple more hours, like maybe 4 in the afternoon to 6 p.m. I'll do a little more work, and then that is when I do my little journaling pages, and then that's it for the day. But I think you probably know, being an entrepreneur, like I'm always thinking about what I want to do and the things I'm dreaming up. So it takes a little bit of intention to put that away, because my studio is in my house also. So I am constantly thinking about it, and I have really had to work hard at being able to just put that away for the time that I'm not actually in the studio, because it's tempting.
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah.
Um, if you talk about journaling, maybe I think it would be really very helpful for others to know more about how to practice journaling. What exactly can you do? I understand that there are many ways to keep these journaling pages, but if you could please describe in more details your experience in these 20 minutes journaling.
Yeah. Well, so it does change over time, but what I have found over the years, that I do like to have a combination of written journaling and my visual art journaling, and I like to have them together in the same book, because I feel like it is this window into ourselves and what we have going on, and it can be almost like a story of our lives. Some people don't work chronologically also, like they don't work from the front of the book to the back. I always work from the front to the back, so it is chronologically arranged. But I work really intuitively. So when I sit down, even so, for instance, if I'm doing just my line and pattern drawing in pencil, I will try to tune into something in my body, whether it's an emotion or a sensation, or if I'm feeling really jittery or stressed about something, then that is something that I want to include in my journal page. So I just try to relate what I'm feeling in some kind of mark or pattern that makes sense to me. It wouldn't necessarily make sense to anybody else, but that is where my written journaling comes in for me, so that if I'm looking back at my journal, 7 years later, I can see that this particular day I was feeling this way, and this particular mark is how I related to the way I was feeling. And I can do the same things with colors. Like if I'm working with watercolor, I can document my feelings in the color and then add some marks to sort of like add detail, both detail about how I'm feeling and detail to the actual artwork. So it works both ways. And then I like to go back in my journal. I don't necessarily write every single day. I might just do the art because that is what feels good to me, and that's what I have time for, and that's what will give me the most satisfaction for that day. But then I do like to go back and look at the artwork and ask myself a series of questions about the artwork I'm seeing in my book, and start to wonder about what things might mean. I think there also is like our artwork can be a window into ourselves. So if I can start to identify what was showing up subconsciously in my artwork and actually put it into words, then I can start making more sense to myself about myself, but then also my artwork makes more sense. And I have found that there are certain marks that show up over time, over and over again, that then become a language that I can use. So those are the things that would show up then later in my more formal, larger artwork. Once I start to have this sort of curated vocabulary that emerged in my journals, then I can use that in my larger artwork. And sometimes I will do something in my journal and I just love it so much that I have to create it as a big piece of artwork. So it works that way too. But I don't know. Did that answer your question? I don't know if I got
Yeah,
far enough. Okay.
it's very interesting. I'm listening very carefully. I'm also curious. You mentioned that when you start drawing or before that, you listen to their sensation in your body. So, did you study any kind of therapy, somatic therapy, or anything else? or are you deeply into art and everything else is just intuitively? Because there are many practices and art therapy or maybe many other ones which can be combined into one um, one thing that helps you to delve deep in and into yourself and as you said, this window to yourself, right? And I'm curious, what have you studied or maybe read something that you incorporate in your creativity coaching?
Well, so what happened is, and I really relate to what you're saying because it's the same thing that I found when I was invited to teach, and I was really like backwards engineering my process and deconstructing to figure out what I was doing. I was in this very mindful, almost, I mean, it resembles art therapy. I'm not an art therapist, so, and I never say I am because I don't want to ever give anybody the wrong impression. But it landed me in this space that is very similar to art therapy. So when I noticed that, that's when the type of coaching that I pursued my certification in, the mindful art that I became, art teacher certification that I got, the all of my like studying that I do is art therapy related because it is something that resonates with me and it's something that I was already doing. When I started to read the some of the methods and the thought processes behind it, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is what I do.
I had
It was so like exciting and validating and interesting to me, and I really just love it, and it's how I work. But no, I don't have any specific like art therapy training or anything, and I'm not trained in um, somatics either, but it is just, it's what I was doing. I mean, somatics interest me, so I may want to be certified in that at some point, but um, no, I don't have any special training in it. I just love it.
yeah, it's so funny. A year ago, a year ago maybe, when I read the first book about art therapy, I had the same feeling. Oh my God, this is what I'm doing with my drawing
Yeah.
club. It's
Yeah.
so fun. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it just came intuitively. I think when we really love something and we search and just practice all these things, we can come to them intuitively. Of course, if you want to be an art therapist, you have to study art therapy well because it's a profession too. I mean that some practices they're not separate. Like this is this kind of therapy. This is this kind of. They have something similar. And sometimes when we work with art, like creative process, like a kind of artistic therapy, what's the good name for that? Okay, this creative process, when you connect to your inner self, you definitely put together some different experiences, and it's really interesting then to find these connections when, for example, I start to study some of the some coaching or therapy or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just think that it's that to me, art is such a full body experience. It's not just what your hands and your brain are doing. It's like everything. So I feel like that is what lands you in that territory, the intuitive and therapeutic feeling territory.
Yes. Okay, another question that I have to you, if you could also share with us maybe some creative practices this that sorry that people can do like morning routines or evening routines, something that can be easy accessible and inspiring just to create when you want to create but you don't know what to do,
Yeah.
because I know for some people it's a question when they have this
Hmm.
feeling that they want to create, but they need some inspiration or support to
Yeah.
start.
So one thing that I love that I feel like is accessible to almost everyone is, um, well, a couple different thoughts on a morning practice. Uh, if you want to keep a morning practice, it needs to be super accessible and easy. So one of the tricks you can use is to keep your supplies out in the open where you will come across them each morning and where you might have time to engage with them. So an example I like to use is like when the coffee is brewing in the morning or when your water is boiling for tea, you can have your journal just sitting on the counter with colored pencils next to it or markers next to it. And then you can just start to doodle. If you're not, some people like to do illustrative art, like you could think about, you know, what you could draw your coffee mug, or you could think about what you're going to do today and draw a little picture of what you think it's going to look like. Or if you have a word on your mind, you could just write the word and decorate around it, or something like that. But something that's also really easy if you can't think of anything to do. I like to just like close my eyes and do a scribble, and then when I see what it is, then I can just start to play with embellishing it. If it looks like something to me, like maybe it looks a little bit like a bird, then I can make a bird out of it. Or if it looks, you know, like anything, you can make the thing out of it if you want. But if you're more inclined to do abstract things, you can just start to add different marks to it. Maybe you want to add some color to it, but those can move really quickly and they can be easy as a morning exercise. The other thing I like is a color check-in, which doesn't take very long at all. You can just take a minute and close your eyes, take a deep breath, and start to imagine and try to identify what color you feel like right now. And just log that in your journal, and you can write why you feel connected to that color right now, what it represents to you. You can do that over time, and that can be a really fun thing to look back on too, just to see like each morning, these are the different ways I was feeling. And you might notice too that different colors or the same color you might relate to differently on a different day. So it's just interesting.
Oh, thank you for sharing. This one is new to me, to think about, feel the color and explain why this one. Thank you. I will try, definitely.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. I also know that for many of our listeners, also very interesting this side of art business, because when you're an artist and an entrepreneur, you definitely meet a lot of challenges in your business, and it would be very nice to know, to learn something from you. You have experience in this field, and maybe something that you noticed that can also be helpful to others, or maybe just share with us what are the most challenging moments in being an entrepreneur, an artist altogether.
Yeah, well, I am probably not the best person to talk to about a business plan.
No, I can't agree to this, because okay, if I interview their big businessmen, businesswomen who already manage everything, they really already forgot how it was at the beginning. This is why I think it's really important to ask people who are interviewing, who work mostly by their own and everything do by themselves. It's really very important, because your memories are so fresh. A few years ago, maybe you didn't have this business, so it's really can be very helpful to know these first steps.
Yeah, well, honestly, I think you know, I feel like I should always put the asterisk on my background, because my business is not the one that supports our family. So I have a lot of freedom to kind of, like you said, go through a lot of changes and try a lot of different things, because we're not financially dependent on my work. So a couple of the things I have learned over the years, I am very much what is it? Is it trial and error kind of person? So I did learn that I don't like packing up artwork, and I don't like packing up prints. So in the beginning, I I was like, I love this. I'm going to make prints. I'm going to send them out. I'm going to do an Etsy shop, and I'm going to, and then I realized I really don't like spending my time on packing up prints. So I don't do it anymore. And then, you know, I had to try out, do I want to be in galleries? What does that feel like? Do I want to pursue a more traditional path and like slowly work my way up and gain recognition and do all of those things? And what does that feel like? And I did it for a little bit. I did enjoy it, but then I was presented with the opportunity to teach, and I love teaching. I didn't know if I would, and so then I've gone the route more of teaching and working from home, and not so much the route of trying to be out in public and displaying my work in galleries and stuff. So I think, you know, creative people, I do feel like kind of like flit about and want to try all these different things. I would say I don't think it's the best business plan, but it has been good for me as an artist to discover what's meaningful to me and what feels the best. So I would say don't be afraid to reach out and get help. I think hiring an accountant was one of the best things I ever did, because I don't want to spend my time doing any of that. It's well worth the money to me to have him do those things. Um, uh, and I think that letting go of perfectionism in business is also important, because I have a tendency to, I, my my creativity mentor, my teacher, was she was kind of saying she thinks I'm a perfectionist, and I was like, I'm not a perfectionist. I'm not. No, I'm not. I can let things go. And then she reworded it to be, you are always striving for excellence, which is true, because I don't want anything I put out there to not be the best it can possibly be. I don't want to give a subpar product to anyone. But that also means when I'm creating classes, or, you know, writing emails, or that I can overdo it. I can spend too much time reading and rereading and putting too much into them. And I probably run the risk of maybe making them a little overwhelming, because there's so much in them. But I think that is something important to remember too, that people don't necessarily always need more, that curated and concise can be better sometimes. And yeah, try to let go of the perfectionism in business too. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to practice what I preach.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was very helpful. Maybe if you don't mind, can you share the names of the names of their brand? What is the name? Sorry, their newsletters. Maybe you said that you have a newsletter. What platform do you use, or platform for educational
Well,
projects?
I use MailChimp
Mhm.
for my emails. I may switch that in the future, because MailChimp itself can be a little overwhelming, and so my assistant and I are looking at maybe switching to Flowdesk, but I don't know
Oh,
if we're going to do that.
I love
Okay.
Flawless.
She feels like she's used Flowdesk in the past and feels it's very easy. So I don't know,
Yeah.
we might switch to Flowdesk. Um, and all of my classes I do through my website and Zoom. I don't use Kajabi or any of those. Not right now. That may change in the future. My classes are, and membership is arranged through MemberPress, which goes through my website. So I have sarahschroederart.com, and then it's MemberPress
Mhm.
on my website. Um, and then what else were you asking about? Maybe
Oh,
the names of
that's
different
all.
things.
Did you hire someone to help you to build this website and connect it with?
Yes, and she's amazing. So if anybody needs somebody to build their website, she's incredible. She lives in Canada. Her Instagram is WP for WordPress, so WP Stylist. But she works from home, so all of our meetings we've always done online, and she just has always listened to what I want and been very very open open to just doing what I'm asking. She's not, she's never trying to like convince me to do certain things. So I would definitely recommend her if somebody needs help building a website. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sure that this information is also helpful for artists who want to build their websites and to start newsletters. Because of course you can find a lot of information on internet and Google, but it's often feel more calm when you have these recommendations from people who already tried them, right? So
Yeah.
my last question for today, looking back, what would you tell your younger self when you first started this journey?
Oh, well, we just talked. I probably would tell myself it doesn't have to be perfect. And also kind of along the lines of what you were just saying, your time is worth money. And I remember I was always trying to do everything myself because I didn't want to spend the money on it. But when I would look at how long it would take me to build a website versus hiring somebody, it was it wasn't even a competition of what it would cost me in my time versus what it cost me to pay somebody to do it. So I would say to try to keep that in mind. I know not everybody has the money they can put towards it, but it is definitely something to keep in mind as your business grows, that you might want to start to pass things off to people that you don't necessarily have to do, that can just really save your time. Because
So
that time you can be making art.
yes, definitely. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. Actually, it was a big pleasure for me because listening to you, there were so many similar things in our past. How when you shared your story, I just, oh, I had the same thing and this and this. So it was
Yeah.
very joyful for me to listen to you. And thank you for
Yeah.
sharing
Thank you.
all your experience. And I hope, I'm sure this your experience that you shared is helpful for others who are maybe struggling with perfectionism, maybe thinking on how to do some journaling every day. So
Yeah, I agree.
thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It was lovely. And yes, I feel like we had so much in common.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. Take care.
Yeah, thank
Bye.
you. Bye.